Good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time zone you are in. Welcome, everybody. This is DM Geezer Jim. Sitting here with my buddy Tenfin. We're about to do a little bit chat, kind of a continuation of our thing from last week where we were doing what is D&D to brand new people. We covered a lot of stuff. I actually went back through. And you know what? Wasn't too bad. But we covered a lot of ground in an amount of time, so I want to kind of circle back on a couple of the main things and like mainly session 0 we saved it for last, so if you missed out on it, that's your fault, not ours. But we're going to start out with that one this time in case you're one of those dudes that watches for 6 minutes and then leaves, and we still love you and appreciate you for that, man. Views of you.
Yeah.
But so welcome back, Ten Fan.
Retention though, Jim.
I'm sorry.
I see you got to get that retention time though.
Yeah, well, Lord willing, if we're providing good enough content, some stuff for people to learn, and being halfway entertaining, then if you build it, they will come.
Only halfway.
So, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just scratching. You're good to go.
Well, I'm gonna give you an official warning. Jump in more, because I did a lot of talking last time. I know you'll default to me because I do some stuff, but man, jump in. Help me keep on track and say your piece, bro. So anyway, new players. What is D&D? We kind of talked about that last week. Basically, a collaborative game where it's a game that is built around a collaborative experience between you and your friends, building a story, building an experience, and a series of memories with a cohesive, recognized framework, i.e., the rules. Very scientific answer, but it hits all the bases. It's not that scientific.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. What do you need to play it? A copy of the basic rules, access to either a set of dice or a dice emulator, and your imagination, and a group of willing people to play.
Yeah.
There's no high cost. There's not a dollar barrier to it. There's no paywall really. For all the fun, cool stuff, you'll spend a fortune, but just to sit and play, no cost. Literally no cost. Well, no, die emulators are free. The basic rules are free. The character sheets are free. Everything is free for the game. So there's no cost other than the time.
So this is going to sound really dumb. My first purchase ever for 5th edition for D&D stuff was specifically because I wanted the turtle race, and they only had it in the turtle book, so I had to get the turtle book.
That's awesome.
So like little stupid things will get you into buying this stuff if you really want it.
Yeah. Now the caveat is if you and your friends want to be Teenage Mutant Turtles and you have the rule set, everyone is a turtle. You don't need to go buy the $2 package for the official turtle rule. You just say, give yourself a little higher armor class, make everybody monk, and have fun at it, dude.
Yeah.
Just use some common sense on it, and that's where imagination comes in, and that's where playing with your friends and a play group comes in. Now, if you're getting into pickup games, Adventure League, stuff like that, it's a little bit different.
Yes.
If you're jumping in an online environment, there's going to be some expectations that you should know stuff, that you should have stuff, and that's stuff that should be covered in your session 0. Referring back to our last chat, we kind of touched on it at the end, but that's really probably one of the most important parts of your D&D experience is spending that time to get to know your fellow players, get to know your DM, express your opinion on express what you want. Why am I here? Because you're putting your time into this game. Don't ever feel like it's a privilege to be invited to a D&D game. It's not a privilege. It's not like it's a secret society and all that kind of crap. No, you're necessary. I've said a lot of times I'm a world builder. I build ridiculous, huge crap. Like this map behind us is Corvair. It's Eberron. I don't use Eberron. I'm not a big fan of Eberron, but I know a hell of a lot about it because it's D&D content. So don't let the barrier of entry be, oh, you have to know all of that. You have to know what you want to do to have fun. You have to be willing to communicate that in your session 0. We kind of talked about why are we looking at personalities. I used the drama kid versus murder hobo comparison last time.
Absolutely.
That is an extreme of it, but it can go as far as loot. How is loot handled at your table? I'm a DM that says I drop it on the ground and y'all figure it out yourselves. If you're someone that's not really caring about loot, that you don't see a new sword and new armor and a ring of wishes as signpost of your future, of your progress, then loot doesn't matter to you. But if you're one of those guys that I want if I didn't get an upgrade at least every 2 sessions, and if I didn't level up every 3 sessions, I'm not happy. There's games that you're not going. There's campaigns you don't even need to touch. So that's part of the
Yeah.
session zero stuff.
It's a big part of it, yeah. And that's what I was saying, like to get to know your people, you know, like if personalities clash, you're not going to have a good time at a game typically. I mean, in to be fair, sometimes it's not always the case. Sometimes you can have games where a person's in real life you can't stand them, but at the table they might be okay. But I mean, that's one of those things like the exception that makes the rule, though.
Well, yeah, that's very true. But the reason we're saying this, for example, I'm not going to name names. One of the players, as a DM and a player, I love the guy, love him to death. Great guy, fun, very creative, great at role playing, good at getting into the moment. But the campaign that I'm playing with him, as a person, there's all the love in the world. But as a character, I'm looking for ways to drown him and let his body flow down the stream, because damn it, we can't do anything without you getting us in a pinch. But
Yeah.
that's now here's the caveat. It's we have the relationship, we have the rapport built up as players, as friends, as people. Our relationship is strong as people, so as characters we can deal with a lot of bullcrap with each other.
Yeah.
You know.
And it gives you, and that's also a thing, is that like being comfortable with the people that you're playing with also gives you the opportunity in character to do things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get away with, like things your character. Some people might take things more personally if you say something to them in character, like oh, if you're insulting my character, you must not like me. But like if you have a rapport with them, then you can get away with some more of that stuff. Like in 2 separate campaigns, we have another player that we play with in 2 separate campaigns. He and I are completely antagonistic towards each other. Like our characters do not like each other at all. But like in real life, we get along great, and because we have that rapport in real life, we can do that stuff in game. Like
Yeah.
it can,
Yeah, absolutely. The investment in the people, the investment in each other away from the table, sharing memes, having chit chats. Hang out. Your session's done. If you're playing online and there's people hang out and chat an extra 10, 15 minutes. The dice are put away. Let's, water deep after hours, sigil after dark, whatever, and just get to know each other as people. Your session zero is a good start for that. You should be sharing contact information if you're playing live face to face. Again, some of this doesn't apply to the friends and family groups. Your session zeros, get on down here, boy, we're rolling some dice, so it's okay. But, going into adventure leagues, especially if you're getting into online games, that's one of the easiest, fastest ways to find a game. Invest in each other. Make sure that, you're spending the time to know each other as people. And respect each other. It comes down to respect,
Yeah.
Kind of like that Mike Tyson meme, man. Back in the day, when you get punched in the face for insulting somebody, the internet's changed that. And it changes that as well here. If you don't know the dude or the girl that you're playing with, if you've never spoken words for them outside of the game, you're not going to really care if you disrupt their time at the table with your behavior.
Yeah. That's completely fair.
But go.
Past just like getting to know people though, like there are other things that you might need to discuss as well for your session zeros, like some expectations of what's going to be in the game. So we were kind of getting into economy before. You might need to ask things like not necessarily just about the economy, like hey, is this a high magic world, is this a low magic world, like what kind of stuff can we expect from like interacting, like what kind of races are abundant in this world, what kind of environment are we playing in, is this a desert, is this a forest? And a lot of times this can actually help with character building as well, right? So like I want to build a ranger, and my favorite terrain is woodlands, but we're in a city the whole time, so my character is now useless. So like you can discuss this stuff in a session zero, like here's some stuff to expect. You're gonna spend a lot of time in a city. Okay, well my favorite terrain is city now. That helps me out for my character. Yeah, stuff like that.
I mean, and it's also, I'm going to speak from the DM's role. It's incumbent that you inform your characters on what to expect. I have a lot of campaigns, a lot of players, so I'm going to keep using them for examples. Had a druid. One of our players wants to play a druid in Waterdeep. Looking forward to the shape change ability of it. And that's all well and good, but you're in a major city. So running down the street as a bear or a moose is a surefire way to have the sky guard and every you know militiaman in the ground grabbing you and tackling you down. And then I'm just a druid. Okay, well, now you've broken a couple laws. So
Yeah.
it was I wasn't discouraging them as much as informing them in order to be immersed in the society to make the campaign be what it is. You're going to have to be wise about what you do. And to their credit, they've done an outstanding job of playing within the bounds of the environment, of the setting. When
Yeah.
they're underground, boy, they turn into all kinds of crazy shit. When they're up on the streets, and walking amongst people, they're either in their normal form or they might use cat or a dog, something small,
Yeah.
a
Skunk one
skunk.
time.
So that was my job to make sure that they understood, and that's kind of what Josh was referring to: high magic, low magic, what kind of setting it is, and some people will say red flag if they're using an older setting and there's racist overtones in it. That's a red flag, dude. That's a very very gray, sensitive area, and I'm not going to sit here and advise anyone on how to feel about that.
Yeah.
But I use older campaign settings. Mystara, Greyhawk. Those were built in the 70s, in the 80s when it was a different time. There's still a lot of linguistics differences in it, and that's when, mythologically speaking, bad guys were still bad guys and good guys were still good guys.
Yeah.
So I have an obligation to tell my group this is what the setting's like. If you want to be a dark elf, that's great because you're going to be very unique because 99.99999% of the rest of the dark elves on this planet are still bent on destruction. A role player is going to say, okay, that's cool. That gives me an opportunity to really stretch my legs in there. But that's kind of the session zero stuff. It's a great example of what needs to be talked about. What are the expectations? How is the world behaving? You don't need to go into like this 500-year history of your world unless you want to and your players want to hear it. But you definitely need to make sure they're informed. Oh, you're bringing an orc? Okay, well, the town guard shoots you with an arrow when you're walking. Why? Well, because there's a monstrous orc nation 200 miles to the south. They're going to assume you're a spy. You need to work with your player on session zero. And if they're cool with that, they're cool with that.
And honestly, sometimes because I was talking to you about this the other day. Sometimes those restrictions can actually be part of the fun. Because I played a drow at one point in time, and that's kind of what I wanted out of the drow was for people to be like, "Oh, you're an evil person," and him to be able to prove them wrong. Like, no, I'm not. And that can offer a lot of really good role playing stuff. And I mean, and we all know at least one edge lord out there that's like, okay, cool. I'm going to play a dark elf. I don't care if they're evil. I'm going to sit in the back, with a hood over my head, and it's never going to matter anyway. you know. So.
So yeah,
you can get away with it multiple ways.
Yeah. So when you're early on, this is stuff that you don't even worry about. Encourage your characters to build anything that you're prepared to run, that you have the numbers, the rules, or that you've decided on in advance that is okay. Don't try to worry about the setting or the world influencing species or history or geopolitical regions. None of that happens. None of that matters in your first 5 or 10 sessions, if I'm being honest with you. Probably your first 5 or 10 months when you first start playing D&D. You're in a hurry to try this kind of fight out. You're in a hurry to try that. It's a series of one-shots, and you're learning, So, yeah, don't be in a worry or a hurry to get all of that lore choked down.
I like your visual that you keep talking about, the upside-down pyramid for when you first start off. Because, like, when you first start off, you're nobody. So, like, you might do a quest or something like that, and you might be known in that town. Maybe by the guards, they might know you, but nobody outside of that place is going to know you. So, like, for your first few sessions, like, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it might take you 3-4 sessions to go down to the damn the farm that's a mile down the road and clear out some kind of goblins that are stealing pumpkins or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might take you 3 or 4 sessions to do that.
And that's okay. If everyone had fun all of those sessions, you D&D'd right.
Yeah, exactly. And you did it without having to worry about all of the extra stuff yet.
Yeah, and what Josh is talking
about,
there's a lot of conceptions and it's a lot of it's wording. A lot of it just may be visualization that we always think of. It's like we're climbing a mountain. the big bad guy is at this peak, and we're working our way up to this guy. So by doing that in our brains, for some reason, people think that when you're level 1, you have all of this space to move around, and as you get higher level, the game becomes more and more restrictive. It couldn't be farther from the truth. When you're level 1, you don't even have a horse. You got enough food to go 3 days. You might, your armor's raggedy. You need that step in front of you. When they're level 1, their view is this much. It's just a 40-degree arc in front of them the next few steps. When they get higher level, they can survive stuff. They have resources. They've made contacts. Is when the adventure starts widening. It's one thing I kind of use for a piece of advice for people when you're setting up a world. A big BBEG is a term you're going to hear a lot. Big bad end guy, big bad end girl. BBEG. If your BBEG is that important, it doesn't matter what your players are doing down here when they're milling around. He's still going to be up here. If he's that much of a big bad guy, they could have gone to the opposite side of the globe, but they still got to come back to deal with this guy eventually. So there shouldn't be you have to do this and this and this in order to encounter the bad guy. If he's that important, they're influencing enough stuff where the party will run into that machination eventually. So start small, build out. That builds with your character's experience and you as a DM. That allows you the time to absorb the rules.
And honestly, it works from the opposite way from the BBEG, where it's like their view is so wide that your characters are minuscule. They mean nothing at lower levels. So you might not even know about them, have any kind of inclination that this thing is going on somewhere else, because you're nobody to them. What do they have to worry about you? Why do they, why would anybody they're involved with be interacting with you?
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know if that's because of writing, presentation, or what, but I mean, for example, most of your 5th level people know when they go play Out of the Abyss, they're fighting Demogorgon. When you're doing the Horde of the Dragon Queen, you're getting ready to square off with Tiamat, So a lot of the known stuff is, I mean, hell, with our Greyhawk campaign, I've told you who, Igwilv is the big bad end girl of that campaign. But she is so far removed from the world from the players that's just a name. They're so far below her level that they don't even register on her board of anything going on, and they shouldn't.
Nothing we've even dealt with has had anything to even do with her yet, really. Mm-hmm. Like maybe bigger picture down the road, something we're doing now might have something to do with her, but we won't know until we're much further.
Exactly. So I mean, it's campaign design, it's adventure design, world building. It's kind of each person does it a little bit differently, but new DMs. Don't even worry about it, man. Just focus on what's in front of you. Focus on the 2 or 3 sections of the book that, you're looking at your map of Wave Echo Caverns, and your group is in room 3, and there's a passage that goes to room 5, room 6, and room 7. Worry about 5, 6, and 7. Don't worry about what are they doing when they leave. You don't have to worry about that when you're first starting out,
Yeah. And I would also like to talk about some of the stuff from like the DM's perspective, right? Because we've been talking a lot about like players, what to expect. DMs, if you're going to run a module, make sure you look into it first. There are some modules, like you can run any module. It doesn't matter. You can run any module, but there are some modules that it's going to take you a lot more work to run. Yeah. Right? So like
Curse of Strahd. I got to step away just a second. I'm sorry. But Josh is going to inform me. No, he's good. I'll be right back.
So something like Curse of Strahd requires like a lot of prep because there's a lot of moving parts that are in it constantly. But then there are other things like Saltmarsh, like Lost Mines of Saltmarsh, that are minimal preparation of any kind whatsoever. These even come with beginner sets that you can get. So these are going to be your easier kind of campaigns to get new players into. And now Jim is gone, so I have nothing to bounce off of. But never be afraid to run any module at all. Just be aware of stuff like that. Be like look into it before you just pick something at random. Because you might be biting off way more than you can chew, not even realizing it. And now Jim is coming back. Oh,
was that good timing?
Yeah. Off by a little bit.
Okay. Well, I heard. Yeah, as I was walking away, I heard you kind of talking about Curse of Strahd as far as preparation, and
Yeah.
Did you talk about Horde of the Dragon Queen?
Horde of the Dragon Queen. So look, I didn't talk about Horde of the Dragon Queen. Okay, and this is actually another good example of know what you're going to get into before you get into it, because like Horde of the Dragon Queen is one of those campaigns that might sound fun from the outside, but a lot of people find it really boring dealing with who's it? The
The Cult of the
what is it?
Dragon.
Red something.
Yeah.
I can't think of what the group's called, but a lot of people hate dealing with like that like really lower level like worshiper group that she has.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of what it is.
Well, I
But
was
like it's
simply
just stretches on.
yeah. Well, I was simply referring to if you're playing it as written. I want to say within the first, we're going to say chapter. You know, there's a couple little things that happen right where the adventure starts, and then those fools got to go basically from what Baldur's Gate to Neverwinter. It's like a
Yeah.
23 or 24-day journey. So you're starting your campaign day one on, you know, basically day two on the road. As a DM, you've got to be prepared to either hand wave all of that entire thing, which hurts the campaign because they miss a chance at a couple possible clues. They don't get the chance to interact with each other, or you've got to play out this campaign. Now, add the difficulty that they give you this entire caravan's roster of NPCs, which is good. At least for once, Wizards is giving you some content to work with. But then you've got to figure out how to work all of those people into the story and keep your players busy for 20 some odd days of travel. Even if you take it into 5-day sections, that's still, you know, what, 5 sessions to 7
Still 5
sessions
sessions.
just
Yeah.
traveling. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You can have a lot of fun just traveling. But I'm saying if you're not ready for that, if you haven't prepared, if you don't have a mindset of who's who in your caravan, that's going to be a boring ass section of your campaign, enough just to completely deflate you, you know. And this is an opening setup, so, you know, just to add to what Josh is talking about as far as read your books, know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I actually have made this mistake recently because I was going to try to run Strixhaven.
Yeah,
Then I started reading Strixhaven. I was like, oh, this is a setting. This isn't a module. This is just like a framework of a campaign, and you have to do everything else in it. Like it's literally like orientation, midterms, like stuff like that. Like it does like you have to fill out everything in between.
yeah. So I mean, that's a great example because I think a lot of people picked up Strixhaven thinking it was going to be like Harry Potter Hogwarts-esque type of a thing. You know, it's actually
Yeah.
tied into Magic the Gathering's universe, if I'm correct. But it is still a
Yes.
gigantic wizarding school of some sort, and it's got some cool content. I love the concept. But Josh, you nailed it 100%. If you are an inexperienced DM, it's going to be a disappointing product because you've got to fill in. Basically, you're talking about the campaign is built around a school year, if I remember
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
and I think they give you maybe 10 to 12 events
Yeah,
as part
just
of the
little
book.
small things. Yeah.
So you're
And a
keeping,
lot of it is like dependent on your players have to complete this task before you move on into this event, kind of stuff.
yeah. So if you're using it as written, you have a year's worth of school that's distilled into 10 possible moments by the book. It's not supposed to be that way. I mean, those are examples. The true expectation is that I fill in another 20 events to where it feels like they're being freaking wizards at wizard school. You know, there's just
Yeah.
not 12 checks and then they get on with their day. So, but that's not really explained to you until you sink some time into the book. You know,
Exactly.
so a lot of the modules are going to
And
leave you
that,
wanting.
yeah, and on the flip side, for people who would like to have that more of that creativity and the ability to make more of their world up, there are modules that are quote unquote modules that are like that, where it's just like here's some basic outline of like events that you can plan around and just fill in everything else, and you have the creativity to do anything else that you want to with that.
Yeah, I mean,
Like I
and
think that like you have like 2 weeks between the orientation and the first test that they had to take in Strixhaven. So you have 2 weeks of time that you can just fill up with whatever you want to do.
yeah, but that's still 2 weeks of time that you, the DM, have to be prepared for your group to have fun
Correct.
and enjoy. You know, I
Right.
mean, Baldur's Gate is another great example. Descent into Avernus looks like got a cool cover. It's got some really cool stuff. People, Mad Max in hell. I'm in. Sign me up. So you're
Mhm.
the DM. You're getting this book, and you're drafting the party into a city that's going literally next door to hell. And your first thing is to keep your party busy for 7 days before the captain's contact is available. So when you read, I'm trying not to, I'm trying really hard not to put spoilers out there, but the situation that's going on, everything that's going on, man, there's a lot of crap that can happen in 7 days. So that puts and there are some hooks, some little missions here and there that you can run. So if you're inexperienced, it's gonna be a struggle to set up. If you're experienced, you're gonna be like, oh heck yeah, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this in that time and make it my own all of a sudden. So an adventure book, a module, it's gonna run the gambit from using it exactly how it's written to taking 20% of it and throwing the other 80% of it away because you only like 20% of it, you know. And both methods are perfectly fine, y'all. Perfectly fine. Different levels of prep and understanding. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, never be afraid to make things up, even in a written module. Never be afraid to add your own stuff into it, and you don't even have to run a module. You can completely homebrew a campaign. Like, never be afraid to do whatever you want to.
I'm gonna
within
put
reason. Within reason.
Well,
Don't just like I don't like you as a character. You're dead. Like don't do whatever you want to, but like within reason.
Well, and I'm gonna put one caveat in there. For new players, I recommend running Dragons of Icespire, Lost Mines, Dragons of Stormwreck Island, or pick up one of your.
Completely said it wrong. I said Lost Mines of Saltmarsh. It's Lost Mines of Fendelver is what it
Honestly,
is.
yeah, Ghosts of Saltmarsh is actually a very, very underrated beginning book as well. People poo-poo it because it was like billed as this big piratey type of a thing, and it really isn't like that. So a lot of people got pissed off on its launch. It's a great one.
I've heard a lot of people actually say for that module to take the vehicle controls from Avernus and
Yep.
put it onto the ships, and it
Yep.
makes that campaign way better.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a more active combat situations on a naval level. You have a lot more space you have to track on your boats, but yeah, that's the idea. Is they got the vehicular combat rules great for Avernus. So lo and behold, this is exactly what we're talking about. We're homebrewing. We're taking a set of rules from one module and applying them to another module. Even though the second module has rules, we don't like the way those ones work. These ones work better. No one's going to come knocking on my door saying, DM Geezer, you're supposed to use this set because you... No, it doesn't matter. What works for you and your party. But yeah, Ghost of Saltmarsh, use it. Great book, man. Nice town. Gives you a lot of detail, some good player maps. Gives the dungeon master probably 15 or 20 NPCs, a couple factions, good descriptions to help you engage in this community to where you can inhabit these people. I think it does a really good job of that, giving a DM tools and tips to inhabit a non-player character, starting it up. And it starts out really small and really low key. The biggest knock on it is you're not saving the world from Demogorgon rising from the depths. It's not a world-shaking campaign, but guess what? Most stuff ain't. But it's a nice anthology. It's built sandbox-esque. I highly recommend it. It's a really good module, especially for beginner, to where you can pick that sucker up at level 1 and have your people dealing with some big-ass shit at level 15. It's good. Yeah. I'll always recommend that when people ask about new players' adventure books.
See, and Jim is very much into like all of the modules and stuff like that, and I have never ran a written campaign. Anything that I've ever done has been completely homebrewed. I make up everything, and we were talking about this before, where he was saying that sometimes as a DM you'll build a city and your players will never see 80% of it. During the homebrew, I just completely duplicated a city, moved it. Look at more of it.
You didn't see my 11 buildings. You're gonna see it this time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the only reason I'm saying to use a pre-made if you're brand new to it is, number one, they're cheap, they're free, they're easy to access. Number two, it gives you a framework. Even if it's not the best framework, you'll find out that this doesn't line up with my verbal style. This doesn't line up with how I would arrange. I would have done this instead. Guess what? You're homebrewing. You're now DMing. Even if you love the mod, you looked at it, this was great. I love how it was written. I'm going to run every bit of it the way it is, and it's awesome. You're DMing. So an adventure book is a great place to get a start, to see how the pros do it. And if that fits you and it assists you, great. If all it does is tells you what you would rather have done, great. It still did its job,
Yeah. Um, I know that we've said that like you really don't have to buy anything, but sometimes I would actually recommend the DM's guide, because there are a lot of like alternate rule sets in there that DMs can use, and there are things in there that can be like, hey, here's hook ideas. Here are tables that you can roll on in order to generate a random encounter if you want to.
Dude, yeah, there's a table back there that you can roll in, and it gives you exactly what to draw on the next piece of graph paper for your dungeon. You can randomly generate a dungeon. You can randomly generate all the treasure that you need to give to your group. So yada yada yada. It's
Yeah.
it is a good resource. It's not a necessary resource
Absolutely.
unless you plan on playing. That's kind of like what we were talking last session. That's a build up. You're enjoying D&D, you're having fun, you've ran 4 or 5 sessions, you've had some confusions, you've had some problems, you really wish, man, if you know, I want to play some more, I want to get better at this, but I'm you know, what am I missing? Well, that's where the DM's guide comes in. That's where the player handbook comes in. Oh, and all of a sudden you got another 200 spells to add to your thing. You could pick up the DM's guide. You've got all, like Josh was saying, you got all the tips on what's different about playing in the desert versus a swamp versus the Arctic. You know, gives you ideas on how to set up a hook, how to engage the party, how to use their backstory as part of an adventure. It's a guidebook. It's not very rule heavy. Every rule that you're going to need is in the player's handbook. You know, there's no secret information in the DM's guide that lets us win because we have the DM's guide. No, it's all there to help you present a better product, present a better scene for your players. You know,
Absolutely.
monster manual, same thing. You've got lots of monsters to play with, and it's not a big deal to add a hit die and make it a boss orc, or add +3 to the damage and make it an extra strong carrion crawler. Simple, easy things to do. Monster.
You're a DM. You can literally add skills that monsters don't have. Like, oh, I want this monster to have the ability to call in reinforcement. He's like the captain of the guard or something like that. You can just do that.
Yeah, you know.
Again, within reason.
Well, when you'll play around with stuff till it doesn't work, and then you realize where it doesn't work and why it doesn't work. Those are things that if a DM, if any one podcast is sitting there trying to tell you the do's and don'ts of DMs, they're lying, because you're not going to figure them out for you and your party until you do them. There's some best practices. There's absolutely best practices, but there's always the exception that proves the rule and breaks the rule. Just because DM says, I mean, I'm a low magic guy. Even in high magic universe, even in Forgotten Realms, the playground of Skyrim Jr., I'm still low magic, you know. And my boys over in Greyhawk, dude, they grumble. They grumble. Sure would be nice to get a potion of healing sometime soon. Yeah, that's what all the farmers that are dying the plague around you are saying.
We're going on what almost level 8 now, and I think I might actually have the most gold out of anybody in our group, minus maybe the actual rich guy that joined, and I have less than 2,000 gold.
And I'm in my gut, in my heart, and in my soul, that just kills me to know that a level 7 or 8 character has 2,000 gold. Because at level 10 in first edition, 2,000 gold is enough to, in first edition, 2,000 gold is enough to buy a plot of land, put a wall up, put a house and a barn, and hire 4 people.
To be fair, I have purposely been saving my gold. That's why I probably have more than everybody else, because I've been like, I'm going to save up so I can buy armor.
But we're going a little bit off tangent, but because I run my worlds differently as a DM, I adhere to a lot more of my educational background, history, economics, sociology, all of that crap comes into my worlds. So if you're in a feudal society, the vast majority of people are dirt poor. The vast majority. So, I mean, my guys, this group will run into all kinds of cool crap to sell that they won't bother taking because they know they're so far away from the city, they're going to have to carry this 200-pound rug 74 miles back to maybe get half of the 500 gold that it's worth. And if you go to the wrong town, yeah, I'd love to buy it. I got like 42 gold. No, man, it's worth 500. And I got 42 of it. You want to sell it? So your party's like, don't even take it. Just grab the cash. But that's how I run. You know, my worlds are a little bit more structured in that way. That's not saying you have to. You know, a lot of people say I spend way too much time on economics, and that's okay. That's my worlds. But go ahead.
And it's appreciated. And I will say that, right? Like as a DM, a lot of times people are like, man, it's a lot of work. I got to, figure out all this information. You only have to do so much in order to keep a game going. As a DM, like you don't have to put in 1,000 hours a week, but But if you do choose to, players notice it and they do appreciate it. They really do. Like people who have a well working economy that they've thought out, like it helps with immersion. You don't need it, but it's noticed when you do it.
Yeah, it. I, I don't want to go too far into economics, but
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like
yeah.
in general, yeah.
Well, for me, it's important in the context of in the real world, the vast majority of your conflict points are financially, economically based. Whether it's resources, they have the food, we don't have the food, let's buy it or take it, or whether it's the trade contract that runs past the Pomarges in threat and let's hire some pirates to sink their boat so we get the trade contract. You can base so much natural shit around economy, but you have to account for it first. So don't even think about it until you get to that point where you want to add that extra layer, that living world essence to your world. Not necessary in the least until you get to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm just saying that like when you do it, it's noticed. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
Like you don't have to do it by any means. You don't have to do it at all. I am absolutely the laziest DM. I will make things up as I go along. Trust me.
Yeah.
I am not the person that has like the charts and the graphs and stuff like that. I'm not that person. But
I am. I'm OCD. My brain goes that way, But and it's like, but let's throw economics away. You're doing too much math to try to get new people. Another thing you can do is food, man. I have not accomplished my session unless I've got at least 2 people saying, "Damn, now I'm hungry." After I've after we're having, stop talking about it. You always make me hungry when we play. But that's part of engaging the players. That's a part of engaging your character. Use their senses. Use their smell. It's not just you walk into a room and you see it's 30 foot by 30 foot and there's a door on the wall opposite from you. The ceiling is 15 foot tall. There's some cobwebs in the left-hand corner of the room, and it looks like there's some footprints that go to the right corner, but there's nothing there. That's a sufficient description for the party to probably go, I bet there's a secret corner and something secret in that corner. You can dress it up a little bit. The wafting air brings a scent of decay, and as you enter, you almost sneeze as the movement of the air first entering the room kicks up a cloud of dust and, kind of stings your eyes a little bit as you look around, and you just can't get over that weird musty smell of something. Seems to be getting stronger from the right corner. As you look around, you see some footprints that are moving towards that way. Change the entire thing by throwing in some dust and a stank.
Yeah.
It's
and that helps. Yeah, and that helps your players imagine that. Yeah. Like I can imagine a room if somebody just describes it to me, but when you start to describe it like that, then it becomes a place that you are. You know what I mean? Because like in my head, the first room when you described it, I imagine like blueprints. Like, okay, cool. I'm
30 foot square door here, corner.
This is what it looks like. Yeah, but then when you actually use descriptive language for the room, then you can actually imagine the room.
Yeah. So yeah, you're
just little things.
Yeah, I mean, and so those are little things that you, as you're DMing, that you can key off of to help your player out a little bit. To, the ground is covered in sand and gravel from recent cave-ins, so you hear your feet crunching on the ground below you with every step. Oh, now they kind of start thinking, oh, we're going to walk a little slower because they're being noisy. Something that simple. Talk about light. The torches at 60 yards down the hall are flickering. All you can see is just a dot of light at the end of the hallway, and all of a sudden the light blots out for just the briefest moment, and then you can see it again. Did something walk in front of that torch? Did the torch flicker? What? Little bitty tricks, little bitty verbal things that you can... I mean, we're using words, but every one of our players, they have sight, hearing, smell, taste, and tactile. You can address all 5 senses in D&D with using your verbal, just using verbalization. Using your words,
Absolutely.
But
yeah, and that's again. It doesn't cost anything. All it is just little small things.
Mm-hmm. So especially if you're kind of a creative writer type of a person, but you can go too far, and I think we kind of talked about that last session as far as you go into a 40-minute diatribe of the food or what the person's wearing or whatever. Then the group is like, okay, DM is invested way too much in this. This is something important. This is something more than it is because you over-describe it. So there's a sweet spot, and the only way you find that sweet spot is by doing it over and over again and finding it. And the sweet spot's going to vary with groups, and vary with campaigns. Some campaigns, like you were talking about Curse of Strahd, I refuse to run it. I'm a veteran DM. I played Ravenloft I5 back or I6 back in the day. Loved Ravenloft. Do not like Curse of Strahd. I can. It's me as a personality, not me as anything else. I cannot maintain a doom and gloom, goth, emo, boo hoo, everyone sucks for 15 levels of play and still have fun. So you're not doing this the setting a favor if you're not really making it, gloomy and dour and oppressive. So when I run it, it's going to be a mockery. We're wrapping up with What We Do in the Shadows, combined with Young Frankenstein, combined with all the when I run Curse of Strahd, it's going to be a freaking parody. Because I personally cannot put myself in the headspace to keep that campaign that dark and that dour and still have fun. So DMs, you're going to find stuff that you just don't like to run, even if everyone else runs it. If it doesn't fit in your style, if you're not excited about it and engaged with it, it's going to affect the play group. They're not going to be engaged with it either. So that kind of goes back to the day of being okay with saying no. I've told all these fools, I'm not running Curse of Strahd.
It also comes back to maintaining expectations as well. Because if you go into it going, "Hey, we're going to do Curse of Strahd, but look, it's going to be silly. We're not going to take it seriously." You're managing these people's expectations. Like they're going to know before they go into it. They're not going to expect the dark and gloomy stuff, and you can have fun with that.
Yeah, and I've told them, I said, go watch Young Frankenstein, watch What We Do in the Shadows, watch freaking Princess Bride, watch Monty Python, because that's what this campaign's going to be. It's going to be dumb. It's going to be silly. It's going to be stupid. And because I can't, for me to try to run it and not be able to run it as intended, I'm an old school guy. I don't want to say disrespectful, but I'm doing a disservice to the content and the party. If a rando person signs up for Curse of Strahd, they're expecting the thunder flashing overhead, and the only light that you see above as the thunder flashes and the ink black clouds are, above silhouetting against the skyline, and the rain beats down and it soaks through every crack of your clothing, and your socks are soaking wet, and every time you make a move, your left foot falls, your left boot gets sucked into the mud, and you bend over and a tree branch scratches by your face. And I'm not going to do that for 15 fucking levels. I'm not.
I don't think I could either, though. That's the thing.
So when you remove that essence from the campaign, it's just a mediocre MacGuffin-filled railroad campaign. When you remove the dark goth nasty out of it, it's a mediocre campaign. I'll look you in the eye right now, and you want to fight about it, we'll fight about it. If you want better Ravenloft shit, go look in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. It takes the rest of the world and gives you every horror movie you could think of, every gothic story you could think of, even that one crappy ass thing where they went to hunt the alligator movie. I can't remember. Gustav the gigantic alligator. They got an adventure for that shit in there. It's great, and you're not stuck.
That's actually another. I was gonna say that's actually another good thing is like settings, things like that. Like Van Richten's super good for like just coming up with an idea for something.
Oh yeah,
yeah, just to look at it and go, okay, this is a cool world, and then build whatever you want around it because it's just a cool setting that you want to play around with.
Van Richten's is a great source book. I will do this plug for new people, old people, other people. If you don't have it, buy it, because Josh just hit a nail on the head. I think you've got in excess of 24 domains of dread, 24 separate distinct story ideas. The book does a good job of giving you the geography of the area. Some of them come with an area map, but that's really about it. Tells you who the main players are, tells you what the average behavior is there, gives you one or two ideas, and that's it. It's just a book full of ideas for you to build off of, So, yeah, that's me. I'm not going to run Curse of Strahd. I'll run, Demestriu.
and it has, like, for real, like legitimate fairy tale, like dark fairy tale stuff in there, too, like Cinderella stuff to, like, Alice in Wonderland stuff. Like,
it's
all
nuts.
that stuff is in there. Yeah.
Yeah, all of your body hero. I mean, they got the Thing going on in there,
Yeah.
like the John Carpenter Thing, straight up. Some of them, they do a good twist on it. Like, my favorite story that they put in there is just simply the Frankenstein. They do a kind of a cool twist on the whole thing to D&D it up. But I mean, that's one I'm dying to run because it's very, very heavy role play, very kind of moody, very interactive kind of a thing. It's a great story. It's a story that we all know, but they put such a cool twist on how it works that it's going to be like, oh, wow, cool. And that's not an adventure book. That's something that I'm going to have to spend the time based on these ideas and make, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, Back to kind of new player stuff. We're kind of drifting in and out on content now, but that's not a big deal. I mean, that's really the next level of it. You've had your session one, you've met your people, you've talked to each other, you've discussed your rules. You're making sure that everyone, we're all going to use basic rules. If someone pops up at that point and says, I want to do something different, your call. If this is your first 3 sessions, I would say no. Just to make sure that you're understanding the flow of combat, you're understanding how the stuff that you've been given works before you start adding stuff to it. That's my personal opinion. If you're DM, run at least 2 or 3 sessions before you start letting willy-nilly stuff happen. And then let it happen like crazy so you can learn more from it, you know?
But also on the flip side of that, don't be too restrictive. Don't be like, hey, you all have to play human fighters. You know,
Yeah.
like don't do that either.
Absolutely. If it's available and you're willing to, if you're knowledgeable enough about it, do it. Your players are knowledgeable enough and excited about it, encourage them. So yeah, don't but make sure it's stuff that's written down. Make sure it's something that you can refer to back in the basic rules, I guess is what I'm saying. Don't allow made up stuff early on.
Yeah, like the Unearthed Arcana stuff. Like I know
You just trying to get my blood pressure up, man.
No. I'm not even talking about that right now. But like Unearthed Arcana
yeah.
stuff, because like Artificer, right, was an Unearthed Arcana class, right? So like it existed there, you could play it, but it wasn't official because it hadn't really been play tested yet, and honestly was a little broken at the time. So they wound up fixing it and then releasing it as real content.
Yeah.
Yeah, so be wary of stuff like that too. Like Unearthed Arcana, look at that. If somebody really, if you want to be the DM that's like, okay, cool, you can use it. Look at it before you agree to it.
Yeah. But yeah, we're still talking, session 1, session 2, session 5 stuff. So hopefully your players aren't coming at you with that kind of stuff. Now, let me throw a wrench in here. Okay.
Okay.
We've been saying new, like everyone in the group is brand freaking new from a DM point of view. And we've kind of approached it as you're a new rando trying to join an online group or a pickup group. What to look for is there. But what about if your group has been going on for 5 or 6 people rotating in out for a year or two, and your DM gets deployed, or your DM, she gets married and she moves across the country and no one wants to do it, but you know what? We want to keep playing. So you're that guy that's taking up the mantle. You've been playing D&D, you know the rules inside out, but you've never DM'd. You're still new to it at that point. Any thoughts on that, Josh?
Oof.
That's a different. It might be a different thing on its own. I don't know. We're getting about 40
no.
minutes
That's
something to think about.
Yeah, that's a good one though, because like it's oof, because then you really have to like really hardcore manage expectations of players if you're going to try to continue running the same story. It honestly would be much easier to go, look, this is their story. If they decide to come back, we'll continue it. Let's start something new.
Mm-hmm.
Would probably be the easiest option for that, and then you can develop your own DM style that way. Yeah.
But
you don't have to try to live up to what another DM was doing, and don't try to compare yourself to other DMs. Like really don't. Like just because one person does something one way, don't be like, oh, I have to do it this way.
Josh and I are polar, literally magnetic, polar, otherwise opposites on how we prepare and run D&D. Doesn't affect our relationship in the least. We learn from each other, So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you are in that boat, you have one thing to your advantage. You have a good grasp of the rules. If you've been playing with each other for 6 months, 9 months, however long, you know the turn order, you know how all the basics of the rules go. So that saves you a little bit of trouble. But Josh, you said it the best. You got to manage expectations. You're not trying to be the DM that you just filled in for. But you also need to be consistent with what the playgroup style has been that way up to that point. Yeah. If you guys have been playing together and having a great time up to 9 months, the last thing you want to do is say, Geraldine just moved to California.